Welcome to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live, where we offer the news, information, weather, entertainment, and sports our commercial drivers want to hear. I'm your host, Shelley Johnson. The struggle of good versus evil has been a premise of many stories and parables throughout history. Author Michael Medico explores this paradigm with a captivating supernatural suspense thriller series entitled The Sainted Trilogy. It's a thriller and love story seen through the eyes of Chris Pella, who's able to communicate with the sainted. It's a suspenseful journey, as good is pitted against the ultimate evil. It's a time travel saga where Chris has vivid and frightening visions learned from men and women who've been blessed by God and the church. It covers many of the worst of all evils inherent in society today. The trilogy includes Evil Awaits, Revelations, and Megiddo. Author Michael is a U.S. veteran who's a former CEO of a direct marketing advertising agency that he founded. Michael took 6 years to complete the trilogy, which required painstaking research. The Sainted Trilogy has received many accolades, including one compelling review by a member of the clergy who described it as a work of genius and spiritual insight. This trilogy will keep you on the edge of your seat. We have Michael with us today to talk about the book series as well as his background. Welcome, Michael. This is going to be a treat.
Thank you, Shelley. I appreciate the time, and I hope your listeners enjoy it.
I was wondering if we could start with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I started out in my career after I got out of the United States Navy. I got honorably discharged back in 1968. And I started my own advertising agency. It was a direct marketing advertising agency, and I had it for about 40 years, in which I really enjoyed it. We did a lot of those 800 number commercials where you pick up the phone, you go to a website, you just order what we have to advertise. And when I retired, I wanted to embark on a different journey. And I embraced my retirement really well. I left my business and I moved into my new role as an author. And in that capacity, I was able to really get down and have the time to do what I felt was not only was a fun work, but it also became a source of inspiration me personally. I had mentioned to you earlier, Shelley, that I did lapse in my faith, and this writing of the Sainted Trilogy allowed me to get back into the traditions and what I had grown up with as a child and then as a young man.
Very interesting. So what inspired this book series? Was this something you always wanted to write, or?
Well, I love suspense thrillers, and I like an element of the supernatural, always did. But so much had already been done about using various entities as a vehicle to get across the message, especially the good and evil message. But I had not seen anything or not read anything where the saints actually interacted with a human, in this case, the protagonist, the hero of the novel. And I thought it would be, for me, a really great way to kind of explore the lives of the saints themselves and find those that kind of would be helpful to the narrative. And that's really what took a lot of research. And it was wonderful. There's so much out there that is available to an author like me in terms of information online and in books, that it made it just a wonderful, interesting journey. And I hope whoever decides to read it enjoys it as much as I enjoyed writing it.
We have a soundbite that describes your book and has an excerpt from it with this wonderful narration. Let's give it a listen.
Imagine that when you are 8 years old, raised in a close Italian family, and attend Catholic school, the epic battle between good and evil is simply a part of what you learn in class. But Chris Pella The hero of the Sainted Trilogy series has a secret he has kept since childhood. The secret. He can communicate directly with the sainted. Through vivid, sometimes frightening visions, Chris is transported back in time where he learns teachings from the men and women who would become blessed icons of the church. Book 1, Evil Awaits, is a terror-filled journey that encompasses the dark worlds of drugs, ritualistic serial murders, and child prostitution, ending in an epic showdown with Satan and his demon horde. It is this horror that our hero is forced to confront, and it is this evil that tests his resolve to fight for his very soul and the soul of someone he loves. In this excerpt from Evil Awaits, Chris tries to rescue a young girl from the MS-13 gang who drugs the kids and sells them to pedophiles. There, in the drug house, he meets Julian, Satan in human form for the first time. The smile leaves Julian's face. I know who you are, and what you do. I know you came for this pitiful creature. At first, I don't understand what Julian is talking about, but I immediately become startled when I realize what he could be talking about. I think that he can't possibly know about my coming for Tina. How can he know about my secrets? No one knows about my gift, my visions, and my saints. Julian explains as he continues pacing the floor of Tina's room. You think you can stop me with your pathetic little visions? You do not know the real power of genuine evil. I look Julian straight in the eye and say, I may not know the real power of evil, but I do know the real power of goodness. Julian sneers and chuckles. Very clever, Christopher. You may want to tweet that if you ever get out of here alive. Julian's face and demeanor abruptly change to reveal a dark and frightening countenance. But you have never had to face ultimate evil, and I will delight in helping you understand its true meaning. I have no response to this madness except for the next vision.
Wow, well done. That's so well written. And it's absolutely terrifying. And the narrator just draws you in. You want to read and hear more about this story. You definitely have a great grasp of the suspense thriller genre. That's not easily cultivated. Were there any particular authors or movie producers or even people who were mentors that inspired you in this genre, especially when you were growing up?
Well, I love to read. Mm-hmm. And again, I love to read in the genre of suspense thrillers and supernatural and all that. And my two favorite authors are current favorite authors are Daniel Silva and Dean Koontz. One specializes in more of the supernatural, the macabre, and all that. That's Dean Koontz, and Daniel Silva develops these wonderful stories, and as seen through the eyes of this Israeli secret agent. And he's fabulous. And Dean Koontz and Daniel Silva, I don't know if they were my inspiration for writing this book, but they certainly gave me the courage to try it on my own, which I did.
What I find interesting about this series, you've got a juxtaposition here. You've got time travel, you have theology, you have a lot of complicated concepts that really draw in the reader.
Yeah, I thought it would be. I did it. I wrote it for myself to start because, again, I like to read about things like that. But for me, it took on a life of its own. I mean, the whole idea of the confluence of so many different characters and different visions that the hero of the novel has, and traveling back in time to when the saints live. I mean, the saints have been here for 2,000 years. I mean, they've been here through the millennia. So going back and starting to understand the type of environment that they grew up in and the type of what they were subjected to in life made it a fascinating journey for me. I mean, you're talking about people that I believe were touched by God.
Mm-hmm.
And these people themselves were like you and I. They were there was nothing that would separate them from anybody you'd meet today except for their faith. And that caused them to become closer to God. And the faith often resulted in the fact that they became martyred. But they were kings and queens. They were farmers. They were soldiers. They were members of government. They were lawyers. They were wretchedly poor and beautifully wealthy, if I could use that analogy.
Mm-hmm.
But they all had one thing in common, and that was their abiding faith in God and in Christ and in the religion that was growing since the early days of the death of Christ.
This is fascinating. The amount of work you had to do and research is just incredible. I want to unpack all of that, but we do need to go to break. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. Stay tuned for more coming up. TNCradio.live is proud to carry the Steve Summers Overnight Drive Show. TNCradio.live is dedicated to commercial drivers. We offer the news, traffic, and weather you need, and the entertainment, sports, talk, music, and celebrity interviews you want to hear 24/7. We have original shows and trucker podcasts that feature some of your favorites, like Ice Road Alex Debogorski and America's Truckin' Sweetheart Marcia Campbell. TNCradio.live is convenient and designed for professional drivers. The best part is we're free, and you can listen anywhere you are on the road. With just one tap, you can tune into Steve Summers and us right on your phone. Simply download our app by going to app.tncradio.live. That's app.tncradio.live. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson, and I'm speaking with Michael Medico. He's the author of the Sainted Trilogy, a supernatural suspense thriller series where good is pitted against the ultimate evil. The trilogy includes Evil Awaits, Revelations, and Megiddo. How did you do your research? Because you had to really delve into their humanity and bring to life the person that they were before they were saints, right?
Right, exactly. They were, well, what I did was I found some really very good references online. There was Catholic Online, which is catholic.org, and they have a compendium of the saints, and they catalog them in such a way that it's so easy to sort and find the type of information you're looking for. You also have, there's just a lot of like encyclopedic websites that you can go in and you can search through them to find out what additional anecdotal information could help in creating what I believe was life at the time these saints existed. It's just Google saints, and you will have millions of references, which I did. And then you subset, you do a subset. Sure. Saints who are martyred, saints who were soldiers, saints who were kings and queens. I mean, it's just amazing.
What does it take to become a saint?
Well, what I learned was many of the saints were made that way. Sometimes hundreds of years later, and a lot of them were martyred for their faith. They refused to give up this belief. I mean, and you're talking a time when there were pagans were running the world. For example, sure. there's a Saint Fabius, and Saint Fabius was a Roman soldier, and he was commanded by the powers that be at the time to put his Christianity aside, his belief in Christ, and worship the pagan gods of the time. It was the emperor had decreed. And Saint Fabius was then refused to do it. He was dragged out, summarily tortured in the most hideous ways you could imagine. And he died, and he became a saint later in life. Saint Barbara was another one. Her father wanted her to become she wanted to renounce her faith. She learned about Christianity surreptitiously in secret, and he locks her in this room in the prison. When she refused, the father himself took her out and executed his daughter. He executed Saint Barbara. So I mean, I'm giving you these graphic examples,
Sure.
but there are some people who were just so steeped in their faith that they became saints just by their theological writings, by the kind works that they did, by miracles that they performed. So there are a number of ways to sainthood, but it's not easy. Mother Teresa, who I probably one of the saints that I admire most, Mother Teresa was just made a saint, and her life's work was holding emaciated babies, was washing people who had communicable diseases, who prayed with them as they died. And she was an amazing woman, and so you could take inspiration throughout the people who gave up their lives for their faith and people who lived their faith.
So I thought maybe you could tell us a bit, a summary of what is the Sainted Trilogy. We have some sound bites for each of the books, but I wanted to have you kind of give us an introduction.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Shelley. The Sainted Trilogy starts with a book called Evil Awaits, but the characters that are in the book are throughout the series. So it starts as a story of a young man, 14 years old, who gets very ill, and he's in bed. And while he's in bed with this illness, he gets transported back in time, and he gets transported to a place called Cilicia. And Cilicia was in the Middle East, and he gets to meet two saints, Saints Cosmas and Damien. Of course, he doesn't believe that why he's there and all this. And during the process, he watches them perform a miracle. And then at that time, he's transported to a meeting, or a whole vast meeting of saints. Thousands and thousands of these spirits appear before him. And St. Francis of Assisi comes out and tells Chris Pella, the hero, what his purpose in life is. And his purpose in life is to find and help people in need. And his other purpose is to fight evil. And throughout the series, he is confronted with the ultimate evil, and that's Satan himself and the demons that Satan commands throughout the series. And there's a lot of very graphic stories that I include, because I think it's important that when you're going to hold the saints up as a consummate good, you have to be able to contrast them with the ultimate evil. And so I show that through these series of stories within the story. And some of them get pretty gruesome, but I thought it was necessary to do it in that manner.
Mm-hmm. And it's Evil Awaits, Revelations, and Megiddo.
Yes.
We're basically following the journey of Chris Pella, who's the protagonist, correct?
Yes, exactly. Yes, and Chris goes through his early adult, before 18, until he reaches the series of 18, and he meets a number of saints. And in each meeting, he learns a bit more about what their lives were and how he could use that as an example. And he goes through this right to his adulthood. He keeps having visions and all. And when he reaches a point where he has to confront the ultimate evil, he keeps having recurring visions. And in those recurring visions, the saints kind of explain what he's going to need to do, but they don't help him in any other way but through examples from their lives. Chris has to decide that it is his faith that makes it needed. His faith is needed to fight this evil. And through the second, evil awaits is when he first meets Satan. And then Revelations is taken from the Bible, actually, the Revelations by St. John the Apostle. And Megiddo is, as you and I had discussed earlier, Megiddo is a hill in the Jerusalem, in Israel. And it is where supposedly Armageddon takes place. So you'll see the travels and travails of Chris Pella throughout these series of stories. And for me, it was like I said, for me it was a great journey, and I thoroughly enjoyed writing it. I hope whoever does read it, I hope they get the same pleasure.
You said it galvanized your faith. Am I correct?
Yes, I had gone to Catholic parochial school. I had gone to Catholic high school. I went even to a year of Catholic college. And during that time, I was kind of steeped in the traditions and the faith of Catholicism. I mean, I learned my commandments. We said the rosaries. We did the Stations of the Cross. I had received communion, confirmation, went to confession, did all that. But when I got to school, when I got out of college and I guess became quote unquote adult, I lost that connection, that contact with the traditions of my faith. And for years, I did not live my life under the traditions of the Catholic, what I learned as a tradition of the Catholic faith. But when I retired, I began writing. This allowed me to kind of work myself back into what I found as the faith that I had lost. And for me, it's been a wonderful epiphany, if I could use that word.
Oh, absolutely. So it was basically a journey of self-discovery for you as well.
Yes, that's a great way to describe it. Thank you, Shelley. Yes, that's what it was for me. It was a self-discovery, and I enjoyed the journey very much. These are amazing people. I certainly don't liken myself to the hero of the book. He's far better guy than I am, and I don't see myself remotely connected to the saints on a personal level. But these were amazing people, amazing, extraordinary people. And what they did for themselves and their faith and the people that they interacted with is truly miraculous. It is.
With so many saints to choose from, how did you know which ones to incorporate into the book?
Oh my Lord, that's a real question. Again, I went and I looked at online, and once I got the storyline, the narrative in my head, and some of the characters down, and I started to build under the construct of good versus evil, I try to find saints among the people that I researched that I felt added a dimension to the story and helped launch it. So I'll give you just one example. In Evil Awaits, I open Evil Awaits with the story of Saint Agnes of Montepulciano. And Saint Agnes was the daughter of the very wealthy Signy family, and they lived in Italy during the Middle Ages. And when Saint Agnes was born, as legend tells it, the house that she lived in, or the house where her parents lived in the birthing room, which was the Signora bedchamber, was a midwife. And the midwife comes in and she starts tending to the Signora as she's giving birth. The moment that she gives birth, and this is the legend, the castle that they lived in, this large, very large house that they lived in, was surrounded by divine lights. Torches appeared around the bed of the Signora, and it instantly came to light. And everybody in the room was petrified by what was happening. But everybody also realized why it was happening. And they all bowed in prayer, and they during that time, Saint Agnes was born, and I call it a birth of divine lights. And her tale, as she gets older and becomes steeped in her own faith, then you see her interacting with Chris and others. Just one little anecdote.
Mm-hmm.
When Saint Agnes had gotten ill at some point in time, she had the Blessed Mother appeared before her, and she's holding Christ in her hand, and as a baby, and the Blessed Mother, because Saint Agnes was such a good and holy person, Saint Agnes allowed the Blessed Mother allowed Saint Agnes to hold the baby Jesus in her arms, and she starts to cry, and the Blessed Mother gives her a cross to wear, which she wore for the rest of her life till the time she died. So that's part of the legend and part of the story and part of the true culture and faith that Saint Agnes was 15 years old. She was made the head of a convent, and she started when she was made an abbess in Procida, Italy. When she was made an abbess, at the end of the ceremony, those little tiny crosses rained down on all the people of Procida while she was made the abbess and blessed by the bishop at the time. They all rained, and then they knew she was something very, very special. And she was a special woman, amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was fun to read about that. And then, in Chris's journey, he meets St. Augustine of Hippo, one of the most amazingly brilliant people. And his whole theological way he was, what his writings and what he was doing at the time were incredible. And he was another one he met. He met Saint Bernardine. Saint Bernardine I use him because he was the patron saint of iconographers, which today, I guess, in current terms is advertising agency types, which I am. So Saint Bernardine, Chris is goes to prom, and he takes his girlfriend, and Chris figures that this is going to be the moment in his life that he would experience what he had hoped to experience with his girlfriend. And I put that very polite. So Saint Bernardine comes while they're parking and ready to consummate their relationship. Mm-hmm. Saint Bernardine comes in, and he starts to talk to Chris, and he's the only one who could hear the saints. And so his girlfriend thinks he's crazy, so she gets out of the car, slams the door, and runs away. I get into a lot of more of it in the book, but these, for good, bad, or indifferent, these saints interfere in Chris's life, mm-hmm. and he's much better for it.
We have another soundbite here. Let's listen to another segment. This is Book 2 of your trilogy, the Sainted Trilogy.
The epic novels of the Sainted Trilogy continue in Book 2, Revelations. In Revelations, the audience is introduced to others of the Sainted and to two new characters, Father Aidan Langford, a priest, friend of Chris's Uncle Al, and Dr. Thomas Houston, an enormously successful atheist and powerful man running for President of the United States. As Revelations unfolds, Chris's Uncle Al reveals events taking place on Long Island and around the world. These are crimes of such horror, the authorities are confounded, and it seems there's no end to the murderous madness. The atrocities taking place are all committed in the name of the Lamb of God. Many of the sainted counsel Chris through their experiences, and their visions are becoming darker and darker. Chris suspects these events are all related to evil forces finding their way across humankind. Revelations ends with the terror continuing unabated, heading toward a climactic end, hurtling towards Book 3 in the Sainted Trilogy, Megiddo. In this excerpt from Revelations, Tom Houston is revealed to be an acolyte of Satan, the Antichrist, who is at the entrance of hell, speaking to Satan. Tom Houston continues to remain in the same position, head bowed to the ground as he answers, "Yes, Master, all is going as planned." "What have you done so far to sow the seeds of dissonance?" "I've done as you have commanded." Consciousness is rising to the possibility that the cursed Lamb of God is to blame for all the terror being wrought throughout the world. The possibility has been planted in the minds of many, and it has taken root. Good. I've placed my dark angels, my princes and their demon hordes around the cursed plain, and they will continue to wreak havoc as like none before. Master, we have so many souls that we must corrupt before evil can triumph. What must we do to assure this victory for you?" Tom Houston, still on his knees, head bowed, could not see the smile crossing Satan's lips as he answers, "My dark angels are very busy these days. Very busy indeed." "How, my lord? What is it that they are doing to fulfill their unholy pledge to you?" Satan smiles as his eyes become wide with excitement, for he takes pleasure in listening to the imminence of his plan for Thomas Houston to hear. Leviathan is triumphing in the tasks I ordain. He makes substantial movement among the atheistic sacrilege, and there are now many more converts each day. I will find such great pleasure when their disbelief turns into the awakening that they must face, an awakening of horror of truth. Now Satan bellows with laughter. "The truth and the torment I will deliver to each and every heathen, as their souls will be mine for time without end."
That's just dynamic. And just as scary as it is dynamic. There's so much more to unpack here, but we have to go to break. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. Stay tuned. Trucking Moves America Forward, or TMAF, is boosting the image of the industry by telling the story of trucking. And your story can be part of it. Upload a photo. Tell us what you love about trucking. Or send us a story about a good deed or charitable act in trucking. Be sure to follow us on social media and contact us through truckingmovesamerica.com. That's truckingmovesamerica.com. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson, and I'm speaking with Michael Medico. He's the author of the Sainted Trilogy, a supernatural suspense thriller series where good is pitted against the ultimate evil. The trilogy includes Evil Awaits, Revelations, and Megiddo. So did you actually travel to the various areas to research the saints, or were you also consulting with members of the clergy and for accuracy and all of that?
Well, to answer your question, I've been to Italy, 3 or 4 times. I was in Portugal. And so, I was in those, I was among the Vatican, by the way. Whomever has the opportunity to see the Vatican, they have to see the Vatican. It is the most amazing place. Anyway, so you're steeped in all this culture and tradition and, the beauty of the church and the saints and all that. So I have seen that, but that wasn't my inspiration. My inspiration was more in what I was able to read about these people. And then I used that as kind of a guide to help me construct the narrative. There were times when I would hit a brick wall. I did experience writer's block, and I would hit a brick wall. So I would sit there for days just reviewing, seeing what saint I could find to help me move the story to the next level. So it was a long, involved process for me. A lot of people, authors may find it easier, but I found it very time consuming.
So maybe the saints inspired you along your journey as a writer.
I like to think that. I like to think that. I don't know if I'm worthy to be inspired by the saints, but I think the saints would like what I think they would. At least I hope they would.
And this trilogy is actually set in modern day times. Am I correct?
Yes, it is. And when Chris travels back, he actually travels to the place where the saints actually from the saints where they actually lived. And then what happens at some point in time, he watches them in their time, and then they kind of step out of the vision, and they stand before him. They are a spirit, he is a spirit, and they both communicate, but in the present day.
Okay. Who is your narrator in the sound bites we've been featuring? He's very dynamic, compelling presentation.
Oh, his name is Omar, and Omar he's a professional announcer. And when I went through in my days as an advertising executive, I've written hundreds of commercials, and you have to look at the actors and actresses that portray whatever you want them, whether they're mothers and fathers or whatever, and you have to also listen to a number of announcers. And I went online and I listened to a number of different announcers, but when I heard Omar's voice, I said, he's the guy for me. So I hope the people enjoy listening to him. He's got a beautiful voice. Very nice resonates. It's a very nice voice.
Yes, he draws you in.
And he does.
And that's so key in an audiobook or any type of narration like that. And it really, I think it piques the interest, and we'll hopefully have listeners saying, where can I find this book?
I hope so.
Let's listen to one more segment from Omar. This is for book number 3 in your trilogy.
In book 3, Megiddo, the ever-growing violence throughout the world continues as Satan and the demon leaders of hell look to claim victory over the souls of mankind. These events, foretold in Revelations, speak of impending doom, as recorded in Scripture, and no one can understand how or why this is happening. In the dramatic opening of Megiddo, Father Langford hears the confession of Satan, and the priest suffers a heart attack. While in the hospital, Uncle Al convinces Chris to tell Father Langford of his visions. On hearing of this, the priest accompanies Chris to Rome to meet with Messenger Amadeo de Marinus, the Vatican's chief exorcist. Satan looks to assure his victory over heaven's forces, so he conscripts Al-Masih ad-Dajjal, the deceiver in Islam, and an army of ancient Persian warriors and Muslim terror groups in preparation for the final confrontation. In the end, there is the ultimate battle between good and evil, as foretold in Scripture, an Armageddon that pits the forces of heaven against the demons of hell. And it all takes place on the ethereal third level of the Jerusalem plain in the shadow of Megiddo. In this excerpt, Dr. Thomas Houston is in supplication to Satan when a hideous apparition appears coming out of the sulfurous fumes emanating from the entrance to hell. Tom is repulsed by his appearance, but asks, "My lord, may I ask who this man is?" Satan looks down at the man and responds to Thomas Houston, "Al-Masih ad-Dajjal, the deceiver. He is the last of a long line of 30 deceivers, and I have summoned him from the pit to instill in you the resolve to complete your assigned tasks." Tom wants to protest Satan's characterization of him, but he knows better and remains quiet. Satan continues speaking to Tom Houston. "I see you are repulsed by the look of your newfound friend." Tom is about to say something, but knows he must continue to remain silent. Satan also knows this, but he continues, "So as not to offend your sensibilities as well as others, the deceiver will do what he must to hide his true nature from those who think themselves as believers. He will do this before he will walk among them. Will you not, ad-Dajjal?" The deceiver smiles and says, "Of course, my master." Satan stares quizzically at the man's forehead. "By the way, ad-Dajjal, I must say, I love the look. But you need to do something about kafir. After all, you wouldn't want to give away your secret. Maybe some makeup. What do you think?" Now Satan laughs at his own joke. Al-Masih ad-Dajjal continues to smile. "Yes, my lord. None of those who follow me will know I am the kafir." Satan laughs aloud and tells Adishao, "Good. Well done. Now, will you promise 72 virgins or 72 raisins?"
That is powerful. Do you anticipate this being a movie or a series?
Yeah, actually, I've adapted the trilogy to screenplays, and I did it. The screenplay is very true to the narrative of the books because I like the way the books turned out. I obviously wrote the screenplays to mimic the book, the books plural, and I've written it as a 4-part, 4-year series of 30. I think it's 36 episodes. And I've written them that way. And every now and then I'll go back, pick it up, make little adjustments here and there. But I need to get this in front of, I guess, just the right people. And that's what I'm working on right now.
Well, I think it would be very compelling, and you would really have a very captivated audience. And it's the kind of series I think we need today.
Yeah, I think so too. There's kind of been a rebirth of the faith that people lost, like me, who lost it. You know, I just want to give you just a little information. There was a group called the Barna Group back in 2009, and they did a poll.
You kind of cut out there. A group called what?
Oh, the Barna Group, Barna.
Okay.
And they had taken a poll, and in the poll, they asked the people if they believed that Satan exists. And at the time, a big majority of people said Satan did not exist. So fast forward 11 years to 2020, another group took the same poll and asked the same questions. They found at that time that 56%, a big majority of those people, not only believed that Satan is the symbol of evil, they believe he exists in our lives today. So, and that is made so evident by the horrors you see happening for no apparent reason.
Oh, absolutely. Did they say why they suddenly believed in Satan? Was it because of all the pandemonium that the world seems to have now, and so much violence and dissension? And
yeah, what I gathered was that there's become this increasing belief that senseless murders, in fact, prove to a number of us that lives have become worthless. I mean, look at all the examples. I mean, just one example from just this past weekend, the mass shootings in Pittsburgh and South Carolina. There was no apparent reason for that. MS-13, who, by the way, I write in Evil Awaits, I write about. MS-13, their slogan, their motto is kill, rape, and control.
Oh.
And what is evident when you hear these stories come out is that even when they're caught and they're put in jail for life, they are totally unrepentant. They just are unrepentant when faced with the fact of what they've done. Yeah. Russia and the Ukraine, terrorists cutting people's throats.
Yep.
I mean, child molestation and child prostitution.
Yes.
People being cheated out of their money. It is happening in such increasing ways that, you know, it's, I don't know. And this, for me, the silence is deafening. I think that when you look at the traditions and the facts that we grew up with have been set aside for this new orthodoxy, this socialism or secularism or communism, whatever you want to term it. When you see it turning to that gives rise to the belief that God is no longer with us. The devil and Satan rules.
It increases. It's almost like it encourages sociopathic tendencies, doesn't it?
Oh yes.
Yeah. People
yes.
acting without any kind of conscience, and I think That's what's lacking. And
Absolutely.
and this trilogy will make people think about that, I think.
I hope, because that was one of the main themes that I wanted to get across. There is evil in this world, and that to confront evil, you have to use goodness. And I think the goodness that you can give, it doesn't. You don't have to confront what Chris confronts, because when you see what he has to confront, believe me, you're not going to want to do it. But there is something you could do to counteract evil. There's something we all could. It's something that could be as small as just helping a child with struggling with divorce of his parents, or somebody that you love dying and helping that person pass peacefully. There's so much good you could do and so much love you can share that it makes us what I believe humans.
Mm-hmm. People can rediscover their humanity.
I think so. Yes. I hope so.
Well, certainly with social media, there doesn't seem to be a lot of humanity there.
No, there is. Yes, true. I'm laughing, but it's a nervous laugh, because
it's a wealth of information. That's what I like about it, but I think it has disconnected people.
Yes.
In many ways, even though it's brought people together worldwide, it has disconnected us. And we've lost sight of a hug, of caring, of kindness, in favor of anonymity and no consequences.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I know we discussed Saint Mother Teresa. I mean, this woman was, I mean, how do you explain someone who's so wonderful,
so selfless,
and fearless,
yes,
and selfless, and consumed for love of God and of Christ, and in everything she does, every way she lived? It's wonderful.
She's a wonderful example. Where do people find your book, Michael? Your trilogy.
The trilogy is available, really, literally, all over the internet. It's on Amazon. It's on ebooks. It's on Barnes and Nobles. It's Books A Million. There are a number of places, and I encourage anybody just to go and read a bit more. They can go to the website. It's www.thesaintedtrilogy.net. And you can go there. There's a little trailer about the books. There's a synopsis of the various titles in the series, and you can scroll down on the first page. You could see all the places that is available. Probably more places than I listed, but they could certainly go and take a look at that. And I also encourage them to write me after they've read it, or if they have any thoughts or ideas, that please send me an email. It's thesaintedtrilogy@gmail.com.
Wonderful. This has been wonderful speaking with you, Michael, and understanding what inspired this whole trilogy. I hope we have a lot of people inspired to read it.
I hope so too, and I want to thank you, Shelley, you and your listeners for giving me this opportunity. It was really, really a pleasure. I hope like I hear from people letting me know what they think, whether they have read the book, but maybe they've had an experience that would be something that would be helpful for me. I'm always looking for inspiration.
That sounds terrific. Thank you, Michael. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. You've been listening to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live with your host, Shelley Johnson. Thank you for listening to another great interview on TNCRadio.live and the Truckers Network radio show. All of the material you hear on TNCRadio.live on our website, our broadcasts, or our podcasts are copyrighted. There can be no distribution without the express consent of TNCRadio.live and its partners. For inquiries, write us at info@tncradio.live.